Welcome back. I hope you've enjoyed your lunch. I've heard really raves about it, so we want to thank Rosie and Geraldine and also known as Vicky Camuso for all her help and support, and for Roseanne Pellegrino for, the queen of cookies. Where is she? Isn't it chicken? But Roseanne has made all these cookies for us, so that's just amazing. Just a gentle nudge about the questionnaires or the evaluations that are on the table. If you haven't done them yet, we really would appreciate your comments. And then the exhibitors also, you have your own to fill out. Okay, so without further ado here, Cody has worked alongside Marie Baldy, which is over there, since 2016 at Investors Group Wealth Management. Together with their team, they provide comprehensive financial plans for clients from Thunder Bay to Sault Ste. Marie. Many of you may know Marie as she grew up in the area, but Cody was born and raised in Thunder Bay. Pretty close. Since 2018, he's been largely responsible for servicing the Schreiber and Terrace Bay region. Whenever he makes a trip along the North Shore, he always makes sure to stop and enjoy the miraculous scenic views along the route. Outside of work, he can usually be found at soccer, hockey, hiking with his partner, Tiana, or volunteering at the Dew Drop-In or a United Way event. You need a personal, secretary or something. Yeah. Good. Anyway, that's great to be busy. Okay, so welcome, Cody, and you're going to share some things with us lovely seniors. Thank you.
Thanks for the warm welcome, everyone, and the introduction, Brenda. So very excited to be here today. Glad to see so many people make it out today. It's going to be a good event. It's been a great day. Hope everyone enjoyed the meals. It's very tasty. I know I don't look like an athlete anymore. I keep adding the pounds on. That's what an office job will do to you over 10 years. So today I just want to talk to you all about estate planning, what that is, why it's important, how it plays a part in just your retirement plan, your overall financial plan, and really just your overall life. And it's important to make an estate plan, whether you're an empty nester, you're part of a blended family, if you're single and you don't have kids, there's still reasons to be looking at parts of your estate plan. One thing I want to make sure is stop me at any point in time if you have questions. We'll fill the 30 up pretty quickly because there's a million things that we can talk about today. But if we really want to generate some questions out of all of you today, and if you see something, just put your hand up or speak up if I don't happen to see you have the back to one side or the other. But please speak up. Let's keep this open as possible. Also, we do have a lot of paperwork at our booth. A lot of people have already come to the auction. Some of those brochures. Come check out what there is. There's a really good planning. There's some organizational booklet in there for you. You don't have to be an IG client to use it. It's really something handy to give to whoever is going to be the executor of your estate. It keeps everything organized, and this will be really helpful. So come see us. We'll have some stuff for you to take away. And there's Breeze gift cards there too if you haven't been over yet. That always helps. So I'm Cody Atkinson. Mentioned that I work alongside Marie Baldy. I've been part of her team since 2018. And her son, Chris Baldy, joined a couple years after that. We're supported by Brent Tucker, who will be involved in any complex insurance planning cases. And then Scott Buck, we call him our stock man. There's a specific company that you want to know details on, or a specific industry that you want to invest in. He's the guy that we'll bring in to talk to you into really minute detail about whatever that investment opportunity may be. And finally, there's also Heather McLeod that's on our regional team. If you don't really have a complex financial planning needs, you're going to end up talking to Heather because you won't need to see us every 3 months, every 6 months. You'll be better serviced by someone in a regional office. And we're not alone with Thunder Bay. There's about 20 practices. So some people that are here today, we already know are working with other IG advisors. There are some other people that come through Schreiber, Terrace Bay, and the like. And if you do happen to move away, there's 2,000 plus practices across Canada. So if you are working with us today and you move to another province, we'll be able to help you find something to work with. But that's enough about IG. Let's get to what we're here for today, which is just estate planning. Again, we're going to cover the basics. Then we're going to look at minimizing the impact of tax because, well, I'm here to talk to you about wealth management, so can't get away from that. And we're also going to talk about how insurance can help. It almost always is the best answer to dealing with the financial shortfall in your estate. I know sometimes insurance can be a dirty word, but it's the most cost-effective way of making sure your estate passes on in the manner that you see fit. And then we'll talk about where we at IG fit in making this all come together. So when you are building an estate plan or considering to start building an estate plan, first thing you gotta figure out is why. Why are you building a plan? What are your goals? What do you want to happen with your money when you pass away? What do you want to happen with your house and your camp? And generally that's gonna be to provide your beneficiaries. Now, some of you may be saying, well, my kids are growing, don't have grandchildren, I don't need to take care of them. Well, if you don't plan for it, the government's gonna quickly become your #1 beneficiary. And I'm sure everyone cares about that. So, you might not think you have anyone to plan for, but let's make sure we plan to make sure money's going to someone that you care about, whether that be a charity, a relative, but not the CRA. You want to give them as little money as possible. And how do we do that? Well, another goal that we almost always look at is to minimize your taxes. But you also might want to just control your finances from the grave after you pass. So maybe you have a spendthrift relative, or maybe you have a disabled beneficiary that's going to be inheriting a lot of your estate. You don't necessarily want them to get all the money at once because it could impact their government benefits. If they happen to be the spendthrift, you might not want them to get $100,000, $200,000, a significant lump sum all at once. Or you might have minor children, right? If they're 12 years old, don't worry, they're not going to get a check written for them to do with what they want at 12 years old, but it can be frozen instead of managed in their interest for a few years. So almost everyone needs an estate plan. Do consider it. And now we'll just look at a few examples of why it's important to have an estate plan. So if you happen to be in a blended family, a lot of times we'll meet with a client and say, okay, you have children from a former relationship, but now you're in a new relationship and you've structured your finances in the exact same way as you did in the first time. Meaning that all of your accounts are held in joint with your new spouse. And any beneficiary designations on insurance policies or investment accounts are to your new spouse. And then when we ask that client, okay, do you want your children from your first relationship or marriage to inherit anything if you were to suddenly pass? And generally they're going to say, well, yeah, of course, my children. But they have not structured their finances in a way that will allow that to happen. So let's be morbid for a second and kill off that guy we were just talking about. He's gone. What's going to happen is all that money is going to roll over to the new spouse. And sure, hopefully you've had a conversation with your new spouse that your children from the former relationship are going to be taken care of, but there's nothing in writing now. And even if that person was going to follow your wishes, if they happen to pass and they don't have a will, now the courts step in and they get to decide what happens with the money, and the courts say only that person's blood relatives are getting the money. So their stepchildren, your former children, they're cut out. So update your will whenever you whenever you change relationships, if you start a second or a third relationship, and make sure that you're constantly reviewing who your beneficiaries are on your insurance policies, on workplace benefits, on investment accounts. It's extremely important. And it's very easy for a lawyer or a financial planner to come up with a way to make sure you still take care of your spouse. If you pass away, you don't want just all your money to go to your original children either. You do want to take care of both parties. But we can work with you and find out, okay, how much does your current spouse require to maintain their lifestyle? Are you going to leave money to the kids you've had with them, or even potentially your stepchildren on that side? And what's going to be left to your children? It's very important to consider, so you don't create more family friction than there needs to be. On that topic, we want to decide how to treat children equally. So one of Marie's favorite sayings is, fair doesn't always mean equal, and equal doesn't always mean fair, right? Someone might want a property, maybe they want a camp, and other people they don't care what they get. Some children say, Mom, don't leave me anything. That's fine. So it's going to be different for everyone, but chances are, if you're just starting to have these conversations with your beneficiaries and you're not planning on leaving everyone a roughly equal amount, they're not going to think that's fair. Doesn't have to be exact, But what we generally recommend is to not bequest certain items, because one, you might not even own that. Should I just talk loud?
I kept pressing it too.
I'm away from it. You might not even own, whether it's a collector's item or a camp, you might not own that when you pass, and you also might not know the value of it. So if you're just saying, okay, I have 3 children, child 1 have the camp, child 2 and 3 will have the residual of my estate, well, you have no idea of knowing if that's going to be fair 10, 15, 20 years from now. So we generally recommend having your will distribute your estate equally, and then letting the children essentially buy what they want from the estate, notionally. So everyone still gets the same amount in the long run, but they can then discuss. And again, they have the discussions ahead of time. You don't want to just pass away and then they're fighting about who gets the camp. So I want to deep dive the camp a little bit further, because that's a very common estate planning goal in Northern Ontario. This has changed.
So how does capital gains impact on?
A camp. So that's exactly why we say to leave the entire estate to, your entire estate to be divided equally, because what happens is, if this will change, it'll show us. But let's say the camp is worth $500,000 today, you got it back in the day for $10,000. So you're gonna owe your estate is going to owe $490,000 of capital gains on that. Only half of that gets included in your final estate, so call it 250 for simplicity's sake. So now you have and that's your only income in the year. That's $250,000 in taxable income that year. So your estate owes tax on $250,000 income. Call it $100,000 in taxes. So if you aren't sitting on $100,000 to pay the tax bill, even if you're wanting just that camp to pass to one beneficiary, you don't have any others, you better have $100,000 cash on hand, or they're going to have to try to get a mortgage put on the camp. And camps are not always the easiest thing to mortgage. Again, especially up here. You got your Muskoka cottage with full septic and sewage and everything, you're going to get a mortgage, no problem. But up here, where sometimes there are only 2-season or 3-season camps, a lot of mortgage companies aren't going to get that through underwriting in a week. It's going to be a long process if they're even able to put a mortgage on the property. Is that good for now on that one?
But you also meant insurance earlier on.
Yeah. So what we recommend is to use insurance to fund that. So if you know you're going to, again, you have a camp that you already know has $100,000 of taxes owing on it when you pass, the cheapest way to ensure that you have $100,000 of money in your estate is to purchase a permanent life insurance policy. Now, sometimes your health might not be there anymore, but hopefully you have a term policy that maybe you bought when you first had a mortgage on your house. Most of those policies are able to be converted without proving your health again. Now, price of that, so for example, you might have a $100,000 term policy or a $250,000 term policy when you first bought your house. And that would have only cost 10, 15, 20 bucks a month. When you go buy a $250,000 permanent policy, it's going to cost substantially more. But one, the price isn't going up after a term. You have this for life. And depending on the policy you buy, it has the option to grow and eventually not have a cost. So in general, if you're about 50 and in good health, you can get about $100,000 of coverage for the cost of $30,000, $40,000 over your lifetime. So pennies on the dollar, and the death benefit is tax-free. And you can also then decide how to allocate it. And generally, you're just going to have to go to the estate, because like I said, then the estate would have $100,000, it pays the tax bill, can't pass it free and clear to the beneficiary that you'd like to receive it. If my slides start working again, oh, there we go. So we'll see, if you have that $500,000 camp today, and you had 3 children, well then we probably want to make sure your estate's worth roughly $1.5 million if you want each child to inherit equally. Again, they might have to come up with the child that wants the camp might have to come up with some of the money, but if you're able to, we'll get that estate built up to $1.5 million. Each would then be getting $500,000 in the estate, right? Maybe there's $1 million in insurance and then the $500,000 camp. The 2 children that aren't interested in owning the camp each get $500,000 in cash. The one that gets the camp free and clear, no debt. It just equalizes it. We call that estate equalization, and it's a strategy that can be done if you're just trying to pass on items of $100,000, $500,000, $1 million, it's whatever it is you want to pass on, there's a way to equalize and make sure all the beneficiaries are treated equally. And that's within blended families as well. It's not just for if you're just passing on to 2 or 3 of your current children. And another reason that I mentioned you want to think about building an overall estate plan is any instance where you're going to need a very customized will. So if you have a disabled child or a beneficiary or anyone in your family, you likely have already heard of ODSP and other government benefits. And if you name that disabled beneficiary directly in your will to inherit your money, you're likely going to get rid of all, if not most, of their government benefits. And no one wants that, right? You want to keep getting those government benefits, keep getting the government assistance, because that could be subsidized housing, it could be medical aids, it could be anything, but it's going to have a financial impact. So, especially if you're not leaving them, if you're not leaving them millions of dollars, you're only leaving them $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, and all of a sudden they're not getting ODSP, well, that's not going to last them very long. So what you have to do is name them, or send the money through what's called a Henson Trust, or a fully discretionary trust. So you'll have to choose a trustee that manages the money on their behalf, and then the money is still has to be used for your intended beneficiary, but they don't own the money, so the government's asset tests don't ruin the purity of the asset tests. So again, if you have a disabled child that's on ODSP, you want to ensure they maintain those benefits throughout their life. But also make sure that they're still eligible to use things like the registered disability savings plan, keep them disability tax credit. It's all intertwined. So it's another thing to think about. If you have a disabled child, don't just name them in the will because you want to give them money, and don't just name them on an insurance policy or an investment account because you could be wiping out their financial future even though you think you're giving them money. So that's just some of the key reasons that you should start thinking about estate planning. But now I want to talk about the tools, what you use. So everyone kind of knows the most common tool. Hopefully everyone has one in this room, and that's a will. Sometimes one that you just print off online, a nice online will kit, can work. Again, we generally don't recommend this. It's better to work with a professional, chat with your lawyer and chat with the planner to make sure that if you have any special needs in your estate plan, they've been addressed. Because there's so many things that can pop up where what you think is nice and simple, okay, I'm going to pass away, my money's going to go to 1 or 2 kids, there could be a curveball that comes up at any time. The other item is, the other thing the will do beyond just saying where the money is going to go is determining who's going to be your executor, and then if you have dependent children, who's going to be their guardian. And just some things that we always recommend people keep in mind when they're picking those executors and guardians is where they live and their age. So first and foremost, assuming everyone here lives in Ontario, you don't want to pick someone that lives out of province and definitely not out of the country. If you pick someone as a executor or power of attorney that lives out of country or out of province, they're likely still going to be able to do the job, but they're going to have to pay a bond to do it. So now you just added a cost to them doing you a favor. Sure, they may be the beneficiary as well, but you've just made it more complicated. So we recommend picking someone in the province. If they happen to be from out of country, they might even have to file income taxes for you in their country. So pick someone from your province, keep it simple. That goes for powers of attorney and executors. This keeps things much, much simpler. And then I also said, think about their age and their capability. So if you happen to be moving into a long-term care home, don't name your neighbor in the long-term care home, that's your best friend, as your power of attorney. I'm sorry, but you probably don't want them. You need someone that's going to be able to take care of you while you're in long-term care or requiring a lot of help. So hopefully you have a child that you can trust, or a niece or a nephew. That's generally what we like to see. When you're in your 30s and 40s, 50s, it's okay to name your childhood friend, but don't do it once you're hitting your 80s. Yes, sorry.
No, that's okay. One question, you say that if they're from out of province, they have to pay a bond.
Yeah.
Does that include your own children?
Yeah. So, could everyone hear the question?
No.
So if I had said, don't name someone out of province, because they could have to pay a bond to become your executor and be away. That's true whether they're your child, spouse, well, spouse is a little different, but it doesn't matter. You need to pick someone, or you don't need to, but you should pick someone in the province. Doesn't matter if they're a blood relative or not.
How much is the bond?
It varies, but it's not $5. It can be thousands of dollars. Yeah. And it's not also just show up and sign a piece of paper and be done with it. They also have to do it in person. So, say you're living here and the person you pick lives in Terrace, BC, they have to come here to get all that done. It's not so easy. Pick someone close, pick someone you see in person often is the best practice.
Okay, I'm currently the executor for my father-in-law's, he's in Halifax.
Yeah.
So the bond, would that happen after he passes away?
Yes, exactly. So if you're his executor, once he passes, you'd be notified of his passing, you'd go out there to settle the estate, and everything is gonna have to be done in Nova Scotia.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And you'll go there and you'll pay the bond. I don't know Nova Scotia's bond pricing or laws, but in general, if the power of attorney or executor is not resident of the person that's passing or requires help, they have to go through a lot more hoops and financial rigmarole.
Good to know.
Yeah, very good to know. So chat with father-in-law, and or maybe you get a Nova Scotia address.
What's the purpose of that bond?
What's the purpose of the bond?
What is the bond? Like, why are they paying the extra fee?
So personal opinion, it's a way for courts to get money. But it's essentially you're proving that you are who they are because the provinces don't talk to each other, right? So your Ontario driver's license essentially isn't recognized as a form of identity outside of Ontario. That's the underlying reason of it. It's not quite as simple as that. That's what it is. Provinces and territories don't talk to each other. So if you want to use someone out of the province, they make you jump through hoops. Other things to mention on that note too, whether it be naming your guardian, executor, or power of attorney, please talk to them first. We don't see it too often, but we see it often enough where someone's been named as an executor or power of attorney and they don't even know it. One, they need to be able to know where to find the will if you pass. So they should know that they're the executor, and then they can take care of your estate for you when you pass. And then two, imagine if you pass and you have young children, all of a sudden you're someone that you thought was your best friend. Maybe they didn't really like you, or they really don't like your kids. Now you're asking them to look after them. It happens, and they could refuse. That's big. They could refuse. Children, it's especially important. Because the person that you've named as guardian can refuse, and then the courts again get in the way, and it's their rules that apply, and they could either be in a custody battle or be forced into foster care, even if a blood relative is willing to take care of them. So get the will, talk to who you're going to name, and make sure they're willing to do it.
Cody, can I just add one thing to that? Like we're talking about the wills. Most lawyers will keep your original, but if you have your original, please don't leave it in the safe deposit box, because they need that will to access the safety deposit box. Do not use your safety deposit box for having will.
Yeah.
Original.
We recommend keeping copies of your will and powers of attorney. Some are pretty accessible to yourself. Give them to your financial advisor, give them to your executor, and even your power of attorney. And then, again, let them know where to find the originals, should they need to. Thank you, Marie.
Does a lot of this apply to the power of attorney ones as well?
Yes.
Like,
100%.
so for bond and everything like that, is that strictly will, or is that?
It's both. If you're going to act on behalf of someone, whether that be once they've passed and you're doing it as their state or as while they're living with the power of attorney, there's going to be hoops and financial costs associated with it if you're not in the same province.
And the reason is because the courts want to prove that you have the authority to do it. It is their, kind of like their guarantee, you're giving that bond to prove that you are going to follow terms and conditions. It's kind of why they do.
Yeah, more of a surety bond, but it's because are you who you say you are in court size? They want the money.
So if you
So I
have,
gotta go. I gotta go here first, sorry.
The executor has an Ontario address, however, is in Europe working for a while. How does that fit with the bond?
So as long as they're a resident of Ontario for tax purposes, that'll be okay. They're not gonna be able to make like a virtual call from their beautiful villa in Italy or anything like that and get authorization. They will have to come back. But as long as they're residents of the province for tax purposes, that's okay. They'll just have to still come here and deal with it in person. Yeah.
So right on the start with the power of attorney, how important is it to have a power of attorney?
So extremely, and
Because I say something, you look at my apprehension, what do you mean? It's important, but
it's extremely important, and I think that's actually the next slide. There we go, the importance of a power of attorney. So what is a power of attorney? And it's something that gives the power of attorney the power to act on your behalf. So they can update your banking, they can make payments, they can make changes to your investments. They are you when it comes to your money, for all intents and purposes. Sorry.
meds, if you're on meds or.
Yeah, they do everything, they can do everything that you could with your property. The only thing that they really can't do is change your will. That's about it. But if they wanna take out, you make them power of attorney and they come and talk to me, they say, okay, great, we're power of attorney on Bob now. We'd like to withdraw this account because we need it to spend on his living. We're still gonna make a note of it, and we're gonna talk to our own head office to make a note of it, but here's the money.
on that note, if the power of attorney, they can't touch your tax-free savings account, correct?
They can touch everything.
Touch your tax-free
Yeah.
savings account, even though the person hasn't passed away?
Yeah, so if once you're the power of attorney, everything that is your property, it's still your property, but they can act on. They can withdraw money, they can invest money, they can give us any instruction, like as financial advisors, they can give us any instruction that you could.
Because I was informed that they could not touch tax-free savings.
So you can't change the beneficiaries, but you can still withdraw money, move things. Yeah, transfer it to another institution, another account. It's a very powerful document. So again, they need to know where it is, but talk with them and trust them first.
What's
Sorry, let's go back here first.
People also need, you're going to need two different types of power of attorney, that one and medical ones. If you don't have a medical power of attorney, you cannot do anything for any spouse or relative.
Yeah, exactly. So there's one for property, which deals with your finances, and then there's another power of attorney for health. Our general recommendation for both is on property. The legal terminology is jointly and severally. We just say and or, which just means that for property, we want two people to have to want to rip you off, not just one. So you name two people on your power of attorney for property, and then they both have to act together to make any transaction. So, and heck, you could make it 3, 4, you can make it all your children, but generally we recommend use more than one. Again, so that more than one of them has to want to rip you off. And then the health, we generally say leave it as wide open as possible, because if you're in a lot of pain and you need someone to make a decision for you, you probably don't want to get 3, 4 people trying to agree on it.
Okay, so you said that proper wording jointly or separately.
Yeah.
Now, if that is put in the power of attorney or it's put in the will, does that, and we have 2 executives or 3, whatever it is on it, does the bond still apply if one of them can work on their own?
Yeah, so if someone has to be required to act, so this would be the jointly part of that, is like the and. If that person is out of province, still need to get the bond. If they're out of it, if it's just separately, meaning that they can act individually, the other person can just do all, like the person who lives in Ontario can do all the actions.
But the other person can have their name still on there?
No, like, so it can be named on the document, like,
Named on the document?
but they won't be able to do anything.
No, but they can still, the other person can still act severally,
Yes,
and as long as they're in the province, it won't get charged.
exactly, yeah. Because you essentially named one, start with blank on the word, but one satisfactory power of attorney. I thought I saw, yeah, oh,
Yeah, I gotta add one more to that.
Sorry. That, he's right, my favorite saying is marriage is not equal, equal's not fair. Powers of attorneys are one of them. Don't pick all three of your kids because you want to be fair. If you have one kid that is
Yeah.
loose and on drugs or just will not make good decisions, don't worry about being fair. You want to pick the person who's going to do the work.
And don't just pick the eldest because they're the
Pick
eldest.
because they're the eldest, right?
If you've got a child or a niece or nephew that's involved as a lawyer in the business, that's probably your best person to pick.
They're not equal, equal's not fair. You want it done your way, and sometimes that means, and you don't even have to tell the other children. If you want child number two, talk to them, because they're the good ones, and they're the ones who live in the world. You don't have to tell them. If that's what's bothering you, just don't tell them. You'll be dead. Right, and talk about experience. My brother, he was the oldest, like, well, he's in Alberta. He can't do the work. So she goes, well, you do my finances, I'll pick you. I said, okay, pick me, but you are picking one more to keep me protected, right? So again, there was 9 of us, we weren't gonna be all executive. You pick the one that's gonna do the work.
Okay, if you have 2 sons that are yours, where you're, and the one that's in college, handle it all and not.
Again, depends on the wording, because if you said both of them have to act together, then the one out of province has to come and get certified. If it's or, and so all of this is just to say, always review your documents. We say at least every 3 to 5 years, and then if anything happens, if you get married, you have more children, up until 2022, if you got married, you voided your will in Ontario. That's not the case anymore, but chances are, if you get married, you probably do need to update your will and make changes. Do I still have time?
No, I'm just. You still have time, Cody.
So
Cody, with the power of attorney thing, like, let's use myself for an example. I have power of attorney over my husband, Heather has power of attorney over her lifestyle. But what if something happened to both of us at the same time? Can we add our children to our power of attorney so that it's a succession kind of thing?
yeah, you can add contingent powers of attorney, you can add contingent beneficiaries. So that's something very important when you're building your estate plan. Because most people's wills will likely say, I leave everything to my spouse. Hopefully there's then the next step of, if they predecease me, I want it to go to my children or this charity, whatever it may be. But you could do the exact same thing on powers of attorney. And I can almost feel that Marie's probably putting her finger up already. Something to keep in mind is if you are your spouse's power of attorney, make sure you remove them if one of you starts to become incapable, right? Because it's going to be very hard to remove them if one of you becomes, you can't make certain changes, right? So we'll say it, and we have said it in meetings, hey, we notice that your spouse is starting to really suffer from memory loss. Do you think they're still going to be able to perform as your power of attorney if something happens to you? Consider adding your children, consider adding a niece or a nephew.
And if you have them as the alternates, you had your spouse and then you had, or my child as the second, and your spouse starts getting incompetent, please go and get it updated, because now your son or your child has to go and get your dad or your partner deemed incompetent. That is a very hard thing to do. So again, don't be fair. Your spouse is starting to lose it, update yours. Right? And again, you don't have to tell them. We're not gonna do that in the meeting. We're not gonna say, hey, Mr. Husband, you're starting to lose it. This way, change it. But we will call them and say, you need to consider updating yours. Because remember, they're separate to you. You don't want the alternate.
And so I wanted to, essentially, update powers of attorney and your wills often, and make sure you're paying attention to where the people that you're electing to act on their behalf live. But I want to touch on some of the more common problems that we also see. So there's 2 taxes that are involved in your estate. One is income tax and one is probate tax. Canada doesn't have an estate tax, except things that end up seeming like it. So I'm going to jump ahead just to an example. Income tax is due when you pass away, the year that you pass away. And If you are the first spouse to pass away, there's a lot of deferral options. But if you happen to be the second spouse to pass away, there's not a lot of deferral options for you. And there's likely going to be a large tax bill. So most people are going to be familiar with an RSP or a RIF. There's a few other pension-like accounts. And when you pass away and you have those accounts, that is income in that year. So in this example, say they were making $80,000 in pension a year and they passed away in September. Well, you've earned $60K that year, or this year so far. So there's $60,000 in income already earned that year. You have a $500,000 investment and you bought it for $300,000. So that's a $200,000 capital gain that's now in the plan, in your income for the year, even if you didn't sell it. The estate is deemed to sell it the day you die. And then you also have RSPs and RIFs equaling $300,000, which is not uncommon. If you don't have your own pension at work, you're probably going to have at least this much money in retirement plans when you pass away. So all of a sudden you've got $460,000 of taxable income. And does anyone want to take a guess at how much of this is going to the CRA? Let's hear some numbers.
2%.
And you're 40%?
Over 50.
Yeah. So it's going to be the max, the last dollar that was earned here is going to go 53.53% of the CRA. The average tax rate is about 46%. So there you go. That's how much is going to the CRA, which is why I said at the start, even if you don't care what your beneficiaries are getting, I'm sure you care how much the CRA is getting. So plan for it. So that $460,000 estate is now $250,000. And I can hear the grumbling. Well, so this you haven't, but the rest no. So, and there is planning that you can do. It's just that you lose the rollover, right? If this was spouse one passing away, all of the money would just roll over to the spouse. There's no taxes owing on it. But when you're the second spouse, so remarry. One thing to know, there's your house, won't be included in it, right? There's a thing called principal residence exemption. If you do happen to have a camp, it can be beneficial, especially if it's a four-season property, to sometimes designate that as your principal residence. Now, you are supposed to live there the majority of the year, but if you're living there close, you can likely get away with deeming it as your primary residence. So in Thunder Bay, or even in Toronto, it can be really important, right? 1 year, your house in Southern Ontario might not appreciate as much because the real estate market is so much more up and down, but your cottage in Muskoka's, it probably is. And it's similar up in the north as well. Our real estate doesn't bounce around as much in the cities and towns, a little bit more a year than Thunder Bay, but the camps are pretty much always going to go up. So when you do either sell a property while you're alive, or when you're handling someone's estate, it might make sense to not just simply go, okay, camp is camp, and we're going to pay capital gains on that. There might be less capital gains on your actual house, and as long as you can prove that you lived for a substantial amount of the year at the camp, you might be able to avoid some taxes that way. So make sure you're paying attention to which property is your primary residence. Maybe have a mailing address at camp for one of your bills. Can help.
Excuse me, I have a question. Lifetime capital exemption, how's that?
Yeah, so on the sale, like on sale of your business or anything like that?
If the second spouse dies, and you were talking about capital gains on your RIFs and whatever else.
So it won't really happen for your general investments, but there's certain items that qualify. So if you're selling a business, or you pass away with business interests, then yes, there's a thing called lifetime capital gains. I think it's $1,080,000 or something like that now, and that can be exempt. That's generally if you're selling a business, specified land like a farm, or passing away with those assets. Not on if you just have a mutual fund, non-registered account, or stock account, generally doesn't qualify unless you can prove that it was a business that you were actively trading.
Yeah.
The final thing that you can do to help reduce your estate tax bill is actually charitable giving. And in some cases, you can actually give away money and increase your estate. Because in the year you pass away, you can donate up to 100% of your taxable income and have that all reduce your taxable income. And in the year you pass, the person settling your estate can also do that for the year before. There's a little bit more limitations on the year before, but you can have it written in your will where, okay, we're gonna carry back some donations and essentially eliminate 2 years of tax bills.
On your GIC, your savings, your RIFs, that they don't become part of your state.
So yes, they don't become part of your estate, but the tax bill's still owing. So the question is, if you name direct beneficiaries on accounts, does that avoid the estate? So the answer is yes, it does avoid the estate. But let's say you have that $200,000 RSP, and actually, if you just give me a second, that's right here. So if you have, we'll not deal with the 2 children, we'll just say that you're naming, let's do this example. You have 2 kids you want to treat equally. You name one as the beneficiary of your $200,000 RSP, and then you name the other one as the sole beneficiary of your estate, because you also have a $200,000 non-registered investment account. Maybe it has a GIC in it. So you're thinking, okay, each of my children are getting $200,000. Easy peasy. Wrong. What's going to happen is you pass away. The child that's named on that $200,000 RSP is going to come to your advisor with your death certificate, and we're going to give them $200,000 because that's what they're owed. Your other child, who happens to be the executor, is going to be settling your estate, going to see a $200,000 RSP that was cashed out to the beneficiary, and there's going to be taxes owing on that because there's still a tax. It was still an RSP that was considered deemed to be disposed of. And again, the tax bill on a $200,000 RSP is going to be $75,000. So the child that's the executor, they have that non-registered account in the estate. They're settling the estate. They pay $75,000 out. Now the estate's only $125,000. They can still go talk to the other sibling and hopefully settle it out. But technically, the sibling that got the $200,000 RSP is not obligated to make up that tax bill. So that's why we say for almost every investment account, name your spouse and then your estate. Because then, and yes, there's a thing called probate fees, so I'll go back to that. We run into so many people trying to avoid probate fee because they think that's the estate tax. It's 1.5%. That's nothing compared to, okay, you just caused a $75,000 tax liability, which was going to be triggered no matter what, but you just caused a $75,000 fight between 2 siblings. It's not worth it. Not worth it at all. And again, we can generally reduce the taxes in other ways, the income taxes in other ways. So I'll touch a little bit more on the probate fees because people do get really upset by it. But all probate is the court saying, we approve this will as the final will and testament of the person that's passed away. And they charge it's a more appropriate label in Ontario as the estate administration tax. So they just look at, okay, what's all that's flowing through the estates? In our recommendation, when we say to flow the RSPs through, yes, they do end up unfortunately forming part of that. But again, it ends up reducing other issues, other taxable issues. And avoiding probate doesn't reduce the fact that that income tax is still low, which a lot of people think it is. Another thing that we often see happen is you name a child on your bank account, and it's not the worst thing to do for like your operational account that has a couple $1,000s on it. They can help pay the mortgage or pay your bills, whatever it may be. When it can become an issue is if you just have a savings account with $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in it, and then you've named your child on it, and they go get another partner, and that partner then splits with them. Well, guess what? That account that they're named joint on with you is part of that marital estate, and the spouse is getting part of it. The ex-spouse is getting part of it. So again, on an operational account where there's not a lot of money in it, it's not a big deal. It's a good way to have them help you. But if there's anything that's a static account, it's just a savings account, don't name them, especially if they are in a relationship, because it's just another way that your entire estate is exposed to danger, exposed to others.
What about the GFSA petition? Prove your
Yeah, so TFSAs is one of the few accounts where we're okay naming someone other than your spouse. But again, if you have a TFSA and an RSP, and the RSP is going to the estate, the overall estate's gonna be diminished. So unless you have, unless everything's gonna be equally divided from the TFSA and the estate, it can cause issues, right? So let's say, almost like in this other example, you leave a $200,000 RSP to your estate and a $200,000 tax free
But you can bring them over if you want to.
to your other partner, or sorry, to your other child. The estate's still only, you're gonna get the $200,000 RSP, they're still gonna owe taxes and the tax-free savings account. This is gonna flow through tax-free. It doesn't create a bill in the estate, but unless you've named the same beneficiaries and the same percentages as your estate, it can cause some serious issues. But you can, it is one of the safer accounts to name, but again, it's probably gonna be required to pay part of the income taxes. But you can also just name, maybe make 2 or 3 TFSAs, and you have the majority of your money go through to the estate, and then you have a small $15,000, $16,000, $20,000 gift to your children. And that way they also get money really quickly, because that's a benefit of life insurance or a direct beneficiary on TFSAs, is if you pass away and the beneficiary brings us their death certificate, they're getting their money in like 5 to 10 business days. You go settle in the state in 5 to 10 business days, and I will be bringing you all the business in the world. It's not happening. You settle it in a year, we'll be pretty happy. So it is nice to have some money set aside, especially like if they're not financially capable themselves, burying you, cremating you, whatever your wishes are. Maybe you want to make sure that they get 15 to 50K right away, so they can take care of things for you. So just quickly, the 4 steps that you kind of need to make a financial plan is first figure out who you want to get money. We already, again, going to keep hitting on this. You don't want it to be the CRA, so yes, you do have beneficiaries. Think about who you want to get your money. Once you've decided who you want to get your money, talk to a financial planner and a lawyer and determine the best way to go about making that happen. And then you're likely going to need to insure the gap. We did do an in-depth illustration of that, but dollar for dollar, life insurance is going to be the best way for you to fund almost any estate goal you can be thinking of. And I do say that being able to sell life insurance, but it's the truth. And then update your legal documents as you see fit. That's when you get the lawyer. Another thing I'll say for working with the planner, whether that be someone at IG, someone at 355 or anything like that, a good advisor should be saving you legal fees and accounting fees, because you don't need to go see your lawyer and accountant and have them bill you for hours of work. We build the basis of the plan. You take that plan to your accountant and lawyer, and they're essentially signing off on it over the course of a half an hour, an hour, instead of you having a 3-hour bill from the accountant at $300 an hour. So if you're working with someone, make sure they're doing that for you, because that's our goal. You pay us you pay us a percentage fee. You pay your accountants and lawyers an hourly rate. Let us save you that money. We take care of pretty much everything with the $sign at IG. And how we build a plan for our clients is we want to get to know our clients. We always sit down with them 15 minutes to an hour. Kind of depends on how much they want to tell us in that first meeting. You tell us what you want to happen, what you currently have. We go away and build a plan, and then come back to you, present, say, here's what we think you should do. Here's how much it's going to cost, or where we can find savings for you. Does this work? If you want to make tweaks, we go away again and make some tweaks. Come back, present again, and then once we've decided on an action plan, we just monitor that with you. We like to see everyone at least once a year, but that's something to discuss with me. But that's how we work and what we do. And it's no pressure, no obligation. We don't have all the free time in the world, but we are through Terrace Bay and Schreiber quite often. We service, like I said, I might not have said it at the start. We service clients from Thunder Bay to Sault Ste. Marie, all on the North Shore. So we're always happy to help. And I will be back. But thank you.
Kogi, on behalf of the Schreiber Senior Citizens Club, we'd like to thank you very much for coming and doing this presentation. I know there's lots of questions that everybody wants to ask, so maybe you can ask them after Cody and what's her name, Marie. Again, thank you very much, Cody.
Lots of information, really helpful for seniors, lots of the do's and don'ts that we don't really think of as we get older.